Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. Boy, it's been a year and a half, I think, since we gathered last time, and it was a very exciting time because I think the movie was just going to come out that night. And so we were all filled with eager anticipation to see the Zodiac film. And I certainly wasn't disappointed. I thought it was a really great film. Captured most of the key elements of the case. And I'd sort of hoped that by this gathering, the case would have been solved and that we would all be here, you know, kind of celebrating that it was finally solved and resolved. But that doesn't seem to be the case either. I don't have prepared remarks, so when you see me hesitate, the brain is kind of trying to think of, okay, where shall we go from here?
Actually, David, I had something I forgot to say. I'm Tom Voigt, the webmaster, first of all, ZodiacKiller.com, and I want to thank everyone who showed up because a lot of people... I'm sometimes likable webmaster, most of the time like today. It's been really, really a rush to get this going. This should be sold out. I mean, it's the 40th anniversary of the Zodiac mystery. That's why we're here, and that's why I scheduled it at this date, and this really should be sold out. And I just... You know, the local news media, I just don't get the politics of it are just crazy. So many people want to be here. They don't know about this event or they'd be here. And it's really, it's too bad, but I really thank everyone who's here because it's important to remember, you know, what happened and who it happened to. And we have fun with this sometimes, but we don't really forget what it's about. So don't be, also if it's your first time at one of these gatherings, don't be, feel guilty about laughing because sometimes, you know, it's a tragedy, but it's also, I don't know, if you can't laugh about, you know, things related to this case, not what happened, but if you can't, if you get too depressed that you can't really experience, you know, other emotions, then you're probably going to burn out pretty fast. And so I think it's been 40 years and it might take 40 more years. So we have to just kind of like be even with our emotions. And so, but if something funny happens, which it probably will, hopefully nobody falls off the stage or anything, but you know, if it's don't feel guilty about laughing. And the other thing I want to say is I'm sitting on Bob Vaughn's organ. Now let me explain. There's a character in the Zodiac movie called Bob Vaughn, and he was a real person. He was an organist in San Francisco. He played the organ. And this is one of his organs. He died some years ago, but he played at the ROXIE. He also played at the Avenue, I think, and a bunch of other theaters. And he was an associate of a guy named Rick Marshall, who was a Zodiac suspect, and that's why Bob Vaughn became a character in books and so forth. I think the Yellow Book called him Mervyn Burnell or something like that. This was one of his organs that he used to play here, and I feel kind of strange sitting on it, but this is where I am. Thanks.
Okay. Well, speaking of last year's gathering, just out of curiosity, how many of you were here last year? Okay, looks like at least half the people. Let's just see, show of hands, how many are here for the first time this time? Oh yeah, a lot of people are first-timers here. And also, how many people have read the book that I co-authored with Michael Kelleher? Okay, maybe a third to half, good. So, and how many have seen the video series that I put on YouTube?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Okay, good. It's hard to believe that it's been 6 years since Michael Kelleher and I did that book. And since there are a number of people here who haven't read the book, maybe I will go over that history just a little bit because I don't have any solution to the case to present or any really hot new information. Unfortunately. So travel with me, if you will, back to yesteryear, 2002, and I, at the time, am chairman of the psychology department at Sonoma State University, and I get an email from somebody that I don't know, that I've never heard of, saying, hey, I wonder if you'd be interested in analyzing some letters from a serial killer. Now this is kind of out of the blue, but I'm generally up for pretty much anything. So I said, well, you know, send me some letters and I'll noodle around with them and send it back to you and we'll see what happens. And then while I'm waiting to get the reply email, because I haven't met this person. It occurs to me, well, what if this guy is a serial killer and he just kind of wants to read, you know? So I was a little nervous. He sends me these letters. He said in an email, and by the way, we never met. I never met Michael Kelleher until my work on the book was done. So this was all done blind. In many ways, it was done blind. And that was one of the blind ways, was that I had not met him in person and wasn't even speaking with him on the phone, as I recall. It was all being done through email. And so I got the first batch of letters and noodled around with him. I didn't have any idea really what he expected, but I just kind of free associated to the material and sent it back. And then I got an email from him that was very excited. Somehow he managed, being a writer, I guess he was good at communicating through email. I got this vision of him that he was so excited that he could hardly type with the keyboard. You know, he said, I'm really excited by what you've done, and I wonder if you would be, and he had told me, initially he said, you're going to recognize this case. I'm not going to tell you who it is up front, but you're going to recognize it. And I'm sort of going, well, I don't think so. You know, I don't follow that sort of thing. But of course, after a certain point, the letters start being signed, the Zodiac. And so, of course, at that point, something kind of clicked in and, oh yeah, the Zodiac, I've heard of that. Actually, I was out of the state. I did an exchange at the University of New Hampshire, 1977 through 79. So I think it was out of the state for some of the key portion of that. And so it wasn't really very big on my radar screen when it was happening.
You would have been pretty young, too, I think, at the time. Well,
not all that young.
10, 15? Well, what?
No.
I'm just trying to get you to come back next year. So.
Well, if I'm still alive, you know, being as old and doddering as I am. No, I was not 15. So I got this very excited letter back from Michael saying, I want, you know, if you'd be willing to work with me on these letters, to continue to noodle around with them, I'd really like to, or I've already done a bunch of work on this book, but I actually would kind of rewrite it and organize it around your letters. So I said, okay, sure. If you're game, I'm game. And then somewhere in there, I then discovered that instead of this guy being a serial killer, I discovered that he and his wife, they had just written a book about female serial killers that was the subject of a 4-page review in the New Yorker. So when I saw that review in the New Yorker, I went, oh, this guy's for real, you know. So at that point, it got to be pretty exciting. And he didn't have a publisher lined up, which kind of made me nervous. We're going to do all this work on this book, and you don't have a publisher? You haven't sent anything out? And he said, no, everything I write gets published. Don't worry about that. That's not going to be a problem. So I went, you know, full steam ahead, and my part of the work really lasted, we worked pretty rapidly, and I think it unfolded over a period of about 3 months, and my part of the work was done. And the way that we set it up was he wanted me to be as blind as possible. So he withheld the forensic details of the case, kind of the events and so on that led up to each letter. Then after I analyzed the letter, then he would kind of fill me in on some of the background. And so in some of the cases, I said some really stupid things because I didn't know, you know, so I had some off-the-wall speculation about some little detail that was in there. Well, this could be this, and this could be this, and this could be this. And in fact, it was a reference to something that was very factual that I was in the dark about. And fortunately, that didn't happen too many times, but it did happen 2 or 3 times where I was left feeling just a little bit embarrassed that I'd gone out on this free associative limb, and it was clearly inappropriate.